I'd like to call to order the Village of Beverly Hills Planning Commission meeting for Wednesday, July 22nd, 2026. Chris, will you call roll, please?
Mr. Campbell?
Here.
Mr. Copeland? Ms. Della Russo?
Here.
Ms. Erickson?
Here.
Ms. Harper? Mr. Lessum?
Here.
Mr. Lucas? Mr. Truss? Mr. Westerland?
Here.
Mr. Aboud?
He is here.
Mr. Drummond? Mr. George?
Here.
Ms. Rajewsko?
Here.
Ms. Cascometti?
Here.
Mr. Mercer? Mr. O'Gorman?
Here.
We have a quorum.
Fantastic, thank you. So, however, we have a couple excused absences from the Planning Commission, and it's Jeff, Ashley, and Jared. So I look for a motion to excuse them.
So moved.
And and support.
Support.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. All right, moving on to our agenda. Before us, we have an agenda. If everything looks in order, I'd look for a motion to approve the agenda.
Mr. Chair, I move to approve the agenda.
Do you have a second?
Support.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. All right, we have the minutes before us from the June 24th Planning Commission meeting of 2026. Hopefully, everybody had a chance to take a look at those. If there's any comments, corrections, otherwise I'd look for a motion for approval.
Move to approve the minutes as submitted.
Do you have a second?
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Okay, public comments on items that are not on the published agenda. Is there anybody here from the public wishing to be heard? Seeing none, we'll just move right along to old business. There is none, so on to new business, which is the reason our fellow council members are here is the joint meeting between the Planning Commission and the Village Council to talk about the master plan and zoning ordinance rewrite kickoff.
I'll take a first introduction. First of all, thanks for everyone for joining us this evening. We're going to do a lot, well, you all are going to do a lot of talking, and so are planning consultants from Gibbles Webster who are running this project for us. So we have Joe Tangary, you guys from Planning Commission may remember him from our meeting last month, and then joining him is Eric Peach. So welcome to both of them. Also, I'd like to introduce our newest planning commissioner, Lou Lessum. So, very first meeting, take it easy on guys. But welcome to the planning commission.
Pleasure to be here, and good to know I don't have to wear this jacket any more times.
I'm sorry, the AC is still a little not working. So, but without further ado, Joe, take it away.
All right. Thanks, everybody, for being here and for having us here. So we are right on the cusp of our comprehensive plan update and zoning ordinance rewrite. And I introduced myself to the Planning Commission at the last meeting. Commissioner Lessum is the new one, so he's the one I haven't met, so good to meet you. Eric and I are going to be kind of running this process. Particularly, Eric is going to be really kind of focused on the master plan portion of it. My colleague, Andy Amott, is going to be really focused on the zoning rewrite portion of it. Tonight, most of what we're going to be talking about is going to inform the comprehensive plan portion of the project. And then the zoning ordinance flows from the comprehensive plan. So everything we talk about tonight ultimately finds its way into the zoning ordinance. But it gets expressed first in the master plan on a more conceptual level. So tonight is going to be pretty interactive. I'm not just going to talk at you all evening. We're going to have you guys putting in some responses to a set of prompts, and then we're going to talk about each set of responses before we move on to the next one. And we will wind up at the end with kind of a collection of your thoughts as city or village leadership, and that gives us kind of a sense of, some of the things that we should be conscious of, some of the things we should be thinking about during the process, and some of your priorities and thoughts about the future of Beverly Hills. So one thing that we're all going to be doing tonight is using our phones or laptops or whatever else we've got in front of us to go to menti.com and put in this code that's at the top. And if you can't see it, I'll read it out for you. My vision at this point in my life is not quite good enough to make that out from here. So 53235031 is the code. And if anybody needs me to repeat it, I'm happy to repeat it as many times as necessary.
Isn't the code I need repeated, it's where I put it in.
Yeah, the Menti.
Menti.com, MENTI.com.
There you go.
All right, now repeat the number, please, once we got that.
Wait, give me a second to get the menu.
We got it all
Yeah,
up
if
here.
anybody needs the Wi-Fi.
Thank you, Lauren.
It's 5323,
523.
5323,
Yep.
5031.
Exactly.
And it's
That I can do, that's the up-close stuff.
53235021.
5031.
Oh, my gosh.
Yes. And you should be seeing this slide when you get in there.
I work with numbers.
Do it again.
Yeah, it'll be oriented differently if you're on a phone.
021
31.
31.
Send me a link, will you?
No. MENTI.com.
Oh, there you go, that's why.
I did it.
We pass?
So if you're in, you passed. Yes, exactly.
Oh, I can go home now?
Yep.
Then you don't get to share your opinion. You have to get in here.
Is everybody in?
No,
I'm in.
Working on it.
Need help?
no. it's not that.
Not yet. Not yet.
Somebody call IT.
Restart your computer, Jim.
MENTI.com.
I'm a congenital idiot when it comes to this service.
Wi-Fi?
Yeah, or no, it's my, yeah, it's no, all the above. There
Oh,
we go.
yeah, no.
Blame it on the Wi-Fi, though.
It should work over like LTE
Right
and
then.
5G too. It's not that like beefy
I inadvertently made it.
program. Oh, we've got some thumbs up coming in.
Oh, do I need to, I know how to do that.
All right, we're all good?
Not yet.
Yeah.
Okay.
Well,
Oh,
One more?
there you go. 5323, 5031.
I need to write it down.
Love Hacemos.
All right,
Everyone good?
excellent. Okay, so not everybody's signed in. A little bit of background before we get going. So last plan was adopted in 2016. It included this vision statement. Village of Beverly Hills will be a safe, aesthetically appealing, fiscally viable, family-oriented community with excellent educational, social, recreational, and cultural opportunities, fostering a successful and diverse residential and business community with concern for ecological stewardship and cooperation with other governmental bodies and agencies. So that's the vision statement from the last plan, and it covers a lot, of course. Now, that's supported by a set of goals, which are also supported by a set of action items that you had in the plan. But broadly, it's a vision of a community that sounds like a pretty nice place to live, right? So that's kind of a reminder of the vision we set out last time, about 10 years ago, and ultimately what we come up with tonight will be used to evolve this vision statement for this newer version of the comprehensive plan. Before the meeting, you were provided with a brief memo from us, kind of previewing what we're going to do tonight, but also laying out the timeline for the plan, because it's a grant-funded plan and a grant-funded zoning ordinance rewrite, so we're on a bit of a timeline. We have about 2 years to finish the whole thing. And the master plan goes first, essentially. It's going to be the driver. It will be adopted before the zoning ordinance. We'll be working on the zoning ordinance a little bit in tandem, but ultimately, the zoning ordinance does flow from your comprehensive plan, so we are definitely going to be pushing the comprehensive plan first. But if there's any questions about the timeline, feel free to ask them at any time. But I just wanted everybody to have that that background and context for what we're doing tonight. And that brings us to the first question of the evening. This is where we're going to think about what do we think are some of the strengths of Beverly Hills? What do we think makes it a good place to live? What do we think is going well? What do we think draws people to the village? Really any of those kinds of things. The strengths of the village can be almost anything that you want to think about as far as a strength is concerned, but we're really trying to focus mostly on land use related issues. That could get into economic development and things like that too, but really what do we think makes this a community that's good to live in, that's good to do business in, that's good to visit, etc. So we'll give you a few minutes to get a few responses in here, and you should see the responses coming up on the screen. And then once we've got some responses in, we'll kind of talk through what we're seeing on the screen.
Just submit, that's it.
Yeah, exactly. And you can submit more than one answer if you want. You can group your answers in a single response. We'll get it all no matter what, so.
Oh, you're starting from the refill water. Oh, sorry. Jeez, stop crashing in everything.
Chat enough. Sound.
Yeah, because it comes up a few times in here. So it's like that one. So anybody still typing, or are we out?
Yeah.
Okay, I think it seems like everybody's put their responses in. So as these were coming in, I was reading them all, and it's obvious that there's a few themes that stand out like right away. The family angle, between schools, kid friendliness, parks, family activity options, I'm seeing a lot of things that point toward this is a good place to raise a family. It's safe.
Peace and fire.
You can walk places. There's another major theme that I'm seeing here, which is that it has more of the natural resources that preceded development in the area intact than most of the surrounding communities. It's more forested. It's got, a river going through it that actually still feels like a river and not like a channelized, waterway. So that seems like another major theme to me. Location within the metro seems to come up a lot here, that you can get a lot of different places very easily and quickly from the village. And I guess that kind of goes hand in hand with the feeling of contrast with a lot of the surrounding area, is that you can go and you can shop and you can do all the things you need to do, but then you can come back here and kind of feel like you're in a little bit of a refuge from the heavier development. And I guess that sense of refuge also goes back to the multiple mentions of safety. I've been watching the sidewalks go in, so that's been mentioned a couple times here as well, and the walkability comes up a few times. And of course, the more sidewalks you have, the more that walkability is enhanced. And otherwise, I mean, I think those are kind of the big ones. And, your public safety plays into that sense of safety as well, and that sense of family friendliness. Any thoughts from any of you on what you're seeing here? Does any of this surprise you? Is it all kind of like exactly what you expected, or?
Exactly what I expected.
Okay.
I think it's good to, really thinking about the mature tree canopy.
Sure.
And, I don't live close to the river, but I know about the river, right? And to bring that as a highlight, especially with, our newest park, right, to realize that the river is an asset to us.
Sure, yeah.
Don't always think about that.
Absolutely.
I couldn't agree more. That's something where I purchased in the area. I don't even live near a park, but my street, when you drive down it, you see everyone's beautifully maintained trees, and that was something that really struck me about the area. But it was also something that hurt me when the storm rolled through.
Right, yeah. Well, nature, development and nature have an uneasy relationship sometimes. Let's put it that way. But, it is one of the things that is really attractive about the area is that kind of sense of forestation, and it hasn't gone away. Where, I live in Berkeley, and when someone took down one really big tree on my block, like, you really noticed it. So, it's definitely different in nearby areas. Okay, so usually when we do this question, people kind of know what to expect, but I do think it's really striking just how quickly we got to some very, very solid themes. So we're going to go in the opposite direction for this next prompt. Hang on. I think you can upvote some of these things. I forgot about this slide. I don't know if you've got anything you want to upvote, but you're free to do that. Can you still see the options?
We have.
We have
Voting.
Right now.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I would say go ahead and
Oh, I've used all my votes.
do a couple.
You only get 3.
Yeah,
Three votes.
Oh, sick.
So
Oh,
take
we've
a
got to look
second
at them
to
first, right?
do the
These are all of our,
Oh, my goodness.
Yeah, they're aggregated.
Yeah, I think this is kind of like a, Jeopardy music type graphic where it's sort of, yes, people are voting now.
So really, you're just taking everybody else's stuff.
what am I undo a vote? Can I undo? Where's the pen?
Choose your own.
Exactly. A new feature.
Well, this one here covers more.
Well, yeah, it's got this second slide associated with it now.
Just confirm.
Okay, so we got 11. All right, almost everybody's voted. Anybody still in the voting phase? Need a little more time?
Keyboard broke. Which is making me sad. Trying to see if I can get it.
Where's the connection?
It's like, yeah, I think it's time for a new one.
Everybody good?
Not yet.
Okay. Got one more.
Are we all there? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. We'll go with, is that everybody?
Should be,
I
right?
think that's everybody.
Yeah, 'cause there's only 10 of us.
I don't know, there's 12 people voted, so.
Yeah,
All right, there you go.
That's what it is. I'm looking, it's like, okay, where's the other three?
All right. Oh,
There it is,
That's
13.
you.
That's it.
okay. Yeah, so this next question goes in the opposite, oh, there we go.
The first.
We've got,
Got to see the responses, okay.
yeah, so I mean, I think some of the ones that capture a few things in a single comment obviously kind of led the way, but yeah, I mean, it's kind of a validation of what we were just talking about as the themes. So, what do we think could possibly be better? That's really what this question is asking. What comes to mind when we ask that question? And this is where you sometimes get really hyper-specific answers for some of these things, and then
They're hard
other
to find.
times. What's that?
Never mind.
Adherence to traffic rules at Beverly and Southfield. I don't think.
Okay. Always a fair one. Give couple more seconds here, and then we'll start to talk.
I mean, the one about outdated ordinances had to come from a planning member.
It wasn't me, I didn't.
Sure.
Scout's honor.
Yeah.
The guy who has to deal with it all the time.
We only reference truancy laws from before World War I a couple times.
Okay.
They know how we voted.
So, if I had to pick a number one theme, it would be infrastructure and roads. And I guess infrastructure can be extended into the stormwater management element too. So that's definitely what I'm seeing a lot of here. Is it seems like there's a lot of consensus that we're dealing with old systems, and that can sometimes, hamper what we want to do or where we want to be. And that's not uncommon in this area, of course. There's lots of, the kind of closer in suburbs to Detroit that have, struggles with old pipes, old pavement. But But even though it's a fairly common issue, it's also something we have to figure out how to deal with, right? Traffic came up, as it always does, although it's actually not as prominent here as it is in a lot of other places. I've done similar exercises to this where traffic was like the first 12 answers. So I think Southfield Road is probably the real big one there, but the mile roads in general all have a tendency to get, a little bit over busy at times. 13 miles, certainly when there's an event at Groves, can be a little tricky. This is probably the least mention of traffic I've ever seen, actually. I do see transportation options are still very car-focused, which is dear.
Oh, my God.
Fair enough.
I was waiting for that one,
name
too.
it.
Based on my conversations with Susie, I was waiting for that one to come up. But so a couple other things that I noticed as they were popping up. Little to no vacant land that can be developed. So this is another fairly common thing with you and your neighbors, is that there is just not a lot of space to put stuff at this point. We've got development throughout the village. The parts that aren't developed are our parks, and we don't want to do anything with those, obviously. So, how do we conceptualize future development in a place where everything that can be developed is developed? So what you wind up talking about is essentially redevelopment, right? Because you're replacing things that were there and have kind of reached the end of their lifespan and are now going to put something else there, which can, in some cases, lead to this comment, new construction displacing character. So as we think about these things over the course of developing our comprehensive plan, those are some things that we need to focus on is, all right, we know that development in the future is going to be redevelopment in some form or another, right? How do we connect that new development to the existing development and make it feel like it's all of a piece? And then ultimately, how does that flow into a zoning ordinance so that we're, without being too controlling enough that we're getting something that feels compatible with what we already have. A couple other things, there's a little bit of cost that's popping up in here, which of course is another thing that kind of we're all experiencing society-wide right now, very, very high housing prices. But it's absolutely true that does limit access to people on fixed incomes and people who are just getting started. And when we consider that one of our biggest strengths is kind of our family orientation as a community, if new families are having trouble moving in, that becomes ultimately a threat to that family orientation because you aren't refreshing that pool of families. So I do think that affordability issue is something that needs to be in our minds. And there are things about it that we can control and things about it that we can't, of course. But we can think about it as we're working through the plan process and can come up with some strategies to help deal with it. Let's see, other things. This is an interesting comment, needing to encourage young new tree stock. I don't know who put this comment in here, but it's insightful. Okay. Because while the tree canopy is definitely a strength and one of the draws, it's big because it's old, and old trees do die. And if you don't have kind of another generation coming up behind that, it takes a long time to grow a tree to replace a big tree that, fell or died. So, they always, the saying in the landscape architecture world is the best time to plant a tree is 20 years ago. So that's something that I think is actually a really interesting point, that, you can't kind of rest on your laurels. You actually have to think about what is coming up behind the trees that we have, because some of them will live 200 years and then other species might live 80. So as holes develop in the canopy, you got to have something that can come in and replace those trees, especially if you have an area where, there's a particular species that was all planted at once or something along the roadway. That can become a problem.
Yep. They're 80 years old.
Good
Because
guess.
they were all built in the 50s. The houses were built in the 50s.
Elms are all gone now. so-
Everybody in the village was given 5 silver maples to plant on their property in 1952. My grandma had 5.
Right, and yeah, those silver maples, they're trees we probably wouldn't encourage people to plant now necessarily. So there is a certain amount of turnover that will probably ultimately be, lead to different trees being planted too. But yeah, that's a great point, that you do have to be thinking about what comes next, based on what you already have. Definitely a few comments about ordinances needing to be worked on here, which is good news because that's part of this project. Looking for any other things that I could pick out as a theme. Did you notice anything, Eric?
Well, there is one that kind of caught my eye. Let's scroll up there. Better communication with the residents. This one's a little bit less tangible than a lot of the other ones. So just as I think forward ahead as we work on the master plan, what are some ways that we can improve that identified weakness? So I think that'd be a lot of coordination with, working with the village staff, and then just hearing more from the planning commission and the village council on how we can improve something like that. Again, that's a little less tangible than a lot of the other comments that are made here. So we'll be looking for ideas on how to go about that process.
Yeah, any thoughts from anyone on the die? What was the most predictable one here?
Infrastructure.
Okay, yeah. I mean, it's obviously it's the one that there's most consensus on, certainly.
Dear.
I think it's a struggle of every community in southeast Michigan. It's just
Right.
the age of the infrastructure. You were built primarily in 1950, so it's 75 years old.
Sure.
Back to the matter.
Anything that really surprised you?
I'm surprised with traffic, just because I travel around a lot of other communities, and our traffic is, in my mind, non-existent. I mean, yeah, it backs up a little bit at rush hour, but it's not like.
It's exacerbated now with 696 and 13 Mile.
Yeah, I know, but in general, so.
Yeah, oh,
look,
yeah, no.
A year ago perspective, it's a breeze to get through.
I was just thinking how, when I saw that, I was like, what if we just turned Southfield into a pedestrian mall? Road commission.
She's Yeah, I mean, I think that if you live farther on the west side, like my parents are over on Belvine, and traffic's terrible over there, like Lasser and 13 Mile, like.
Oh, well, yeah.
Is
You just-
horrendous,
terrible.
and a huge part of your every single day, like Lasser is a lot.
Yeah, it's
So
terrible.
if you're on that side, traffic is,
Yeah, but isn't it just at the rush hour? It's not like middle of the day, it's terrible.
it starts at
But
like
it starts
3
at like 3 o'clock,
and
yeah.
goes
Yes.
until like
Kids out of
7.
school starts at 3.
So
Yeah.
it's a lot.
Yeah.
And the road commission has to live with the irony of their offices being.
Yeah.
But they're the most unironic bunch of people, right? They probably don't even
Nope,
understand.
yep,
It's
exactly.
humorless people.
They tried to get away from it.
Yeah.
Mercer didn't make it.
All right, well, oh, it didn't give us the voting option that time. Why did it not give us the voting? Yeah, it did not provide the vote. So I guess we'll move on to the next question here. So this is kind of a general sounding question, what opportunities should Beverly Hills be pursuing? But really here, we're trying to think about, all right, what are we seeing in terms of trends out there in the world? what do we think could possibly be, helpful to some of the weaknesses that we just identified? Thinking about the affordability issue or the infrastructure issue. Really, what should we be trying to do to address some of the weaknesses that we were just talking about? If you're finishing up a response, go ahead and finish it up. It can pop in there while we're talking, but I definitely see a couple of things that stand out to me. One, there are quite a few transportation-related comments in here. We got bike lanes in the upper corner there. Transit opportunities. I think the Southfield corridor redo is maybe a little more expansive than just transportation. It probably also touches those commercial properties that line Southfield Road. But nevertheless, that could be part of a transportation makeover. Multimodal options down here. So it definitely seems like there are at least a number of you that feel that there could be more done on providing people with transportation options. Somewhat related to that, I see some comments in here about connections, and a lot of them are oriented toward connections to commercial from neighborhoods, which of course is important, but a couple of them are also oriented toward connections to natural resources. So as we've said, that's one of the things that we still have in some abundance, and I think it's good that we're thinking in terms of connecting to both, the non-residential development and the natural resources. There are some things that speak to housing in here. One is this limit teardowns for Bigfoot homes, which Birmingham's right to the north, and we know that they've struggled for decades now with the Bigfoot home situation. But I definitely understand what people are saying, that you might have a neighborhood that really is developed at a certain time and has a certain unity to it, and then someone comes in and puts up a very large, very different home in it, and it can kind of change the feel.
Where's the struggle? You mentioned struggle with Bigfoot homes.
Oh, up in Birmingham?
Yeah.
Yeah, what they were, they were having a lot of their kind of historic housing stock torn down and replaced with extremely large homes. And I think a lot of the people who were already living there felt like they were kind of, almost like the home next door was now kind of looming over them. You have larger lots here, so I think the impact is diminished.
Like, look at like Pleasant, where it went from like cottages to mansions.
Sure, yeah, a lot of lake communities have serious issues with that too.
But then you also look at the area just, east of east of Southfield. They were bungalows essentially.
Right,
And
yeah.
I mean,
Like by
my
Pierce
first house
Elementary?
was a bungalow, and it's hard to raise a family in a bungalow.
Sure.
I mean, for the community living, as you start to expand, you're looking with the small 2x2 closets. Just doesn't align with the way that people live their lives at this point in time. Not to say that everybody needs a 3,500 square foot home either. But I think there's a balance, and we're just speaking about trees having a lifespan. I think sometimes housing stock doesn't fit the lifestyle of people and the way they live. My neighborhood was built without garages, and now everybody has a garage. A lot of neighborhoods that early on were built without garages. Now, if you don't have a garage, you're not going to sell a house.
Sure.
And that contributes to the cost to build homes because of the expectations of what goes inside of that.
Definitely.
I think there's a little balance that you got to be careful of, that if you had a community of bungalows, what kind of community are you then into 2050?
Yeah.
Sure.
I think a lot of those houses over there were like 700 square feet. Like, I grew up on Burwood right there, so, there was, yeah.
That's an interesting comment to me, because we put in restrictions on the percentage of lot coverage for houses.
Sure.
But it obviously now, in retrospect, didn't extend to hardscape, because, we've got a lot specifically that sticks out in my mind in my neighborhood, where there was a 1,600 square foot ranch, and they knocked it down and built a 7,000 square foot house, and then hardscaped every square inch of the backyard with a pool and a patio and all that. And so it's going to make drainage worse for the neighbors, for sure. And so I think we need to address that.
Yeah.
Okay.
We've tried to address lot restrictions so that we're not covering every inch of the lot like you see to the north of us, where you have just a patch of grass for a backyard. But I don't know that that's adequate. We've got stormwater management issues. People cut down trees, build a patio, build an addition, and then wonder why the ground won't absorb the water. And so I think figuring out whether we can address that in some way with permeability and restrictions that also address patios and pools and things like that, I think would be beneficial.
Goes right over to this other comment here, the stormwater retention strategies.
Yeah, that's.
How do we manage that? Yeah.
That was tough.
Some other housing things I'm seeing here, missing middle housing. I see a fair number of comments talking about allowing Southfield Road. I keep pointing out here, it's not there, it's that way. As a more of a mixed activity area, mixed use area, and that could potentially address some of those housing comments. A comment down here, I know mentioned accessory dwelling units. There were a couple actually that mentioned accessory dwelling units.
I mean, I feel like we could address free water with the fact that we have too much stormwater. That seems like those two.
Water is.
Yeah, you can harvest all the water you want, guys.
Yeah.
It's just if you want it treated to meet
Put it in the
safe
tank,
drinking
it's,
water
it's
standards is
7.
a different
Jill,
story.
the one thing I want to point out, and I've been a proponent of this been talking about this for many years, is the fact that when you talk about Southfield Road area, it has all the components of a multi-use area.
Sure.
We have, the Beverly Hills Club there, we have restaurants there, we have shopping there, we have multifamily housing with the apartments, we have the village offices that's an extension to, we have a nursing home, we have all these components. It just, it
just not
developed in
laid
a
out there.
haphazard
doesn't
way.
feel
So that's where, my vision's always been is how do we make this a cohesive area that has that attractiveness, because it has everything already. It has it not, but, but it's all been built out over years instead of having, if a developer came in today to build, whatever, they would do it in a very different organized fashion with a different character of all these buildings, but the components are already there. It's how do we get that to re-engage with the community?
Sure. Yeah, how do you get the uses talking to each other, as opposed to being kind of walled off from each other?
Right.
It's also isolated. Like, to get there, you have to walk down Southfield or 13, it's not like you can just walk through, like in Berkeley, you just walk down the local neighborhood roads and you're in the downtown district.
Correct.
You don't have to walk a major road. I'm not comfortable with 8-year-olds on e-bikes headed to Taco Bell. That just feels like a bad idea.
Well, and look at what Clausen has done recently too with some of their redevelopment.
Yeah. No, they've done a good job too, yeah. They've got
Slowed down the
restaurants.
traffic.
Yeah. They put some barriers in and things like that. It goes down one lane in one spot where I think they probably had high speed. So yeah, there's options. But you have that major intersection with our highest accident, count right at the major area where people should be experiencing those amenities. So everybody drives there. That's a challenge.
The challenge is the Michigan 39 road is owned by the state.
Sure.
You have so many limited options, but if you could, get it down from the 5 lanes it is now down to 3 lanes with a center lane and front parking in each of these, new shops that are popping up. And there's some of them that are closed, some of them are vacant, so you could get that resurgence if you have that cooperation from the state, so on and so forth.
Sure.
And I think the residents would buy into that because then they wouldn't have to go too far over to Birmingham or Berkeley for that matter or wherever. Southfield Lathrop's trying it and they're slowly but surely,
Sure.
I think one of the things that sets us apart from Berkeley and Clausen is that we have strip malls, and they have buildings that have multi-stories. And we're limited as long as we have just one level. So, I've learned more about the importance of density and bringing people in and offering options. I've just sort of changed my mind on that, but I think that it's something that downtown area, as long as we keep building one-story buildings there and allowing one-story buildings to go in, we're just stabbing ourselves in the foot every single time we do that. Because then you can only ever have one thing in that building. It can't ever change to anything else. And the type of investment that we're getting, we're limiting ourselves. So, when we talk about Berkeley and Clausen, and you look at Royal Oak and Birmingham, there's no strip malls in the downtown area, and that's all we have.
Skyscrapers now.
Well, it doesn't necessarily have to be a skyscraper, but when you have a giant parking lot and a one-story building that only
For
gets
Southeast
used for
Michigan,
8
those are
hours,
skyscrapers like.
that only gets used for 8 hours a day, you completely limit, everything shuts down. And
Yeah.
there's no reason for anybody to be there because they can't live there,
Our
so.
village is a ghost town.
And young people are never gonna come to that, they're not gonna come to a strip mall.
They go to Birmingham.
Yeah.
I struggle a little bit though, because, we're not Birmingham. We don't have a downtown. And we have the accessibility of that. We were built as a bedroom community, right? We're trying to recreate a Birmingham, right? But to Pat's point, that stuff's already there. It's private property. We're not going to be able to tear it down and rebuild it. And I appreciate what we tried to do with Goddard School, but that building up front just looks weird and out of place because nothing else is like that. And I understand we had to take that first step, but how does it ever stop being a strip mall and a parking lot?
Well, and I think that same conversation is kind of the same conversation they had 10 years ago when people were, subdivisions were putting in new developments and putting a sidewalk in and there's no sidewalk to connect it, right? So it's not necessarily for today, but it's fixing the problem today so that in 20 years, there's something to build up for that.
Sure.
You know, had we gotten Country Day to put that sidewalk in instead of saying, no, you don't have to, like maybe that conversation of the walkability of that corner would have been different. And so that's, I think, what we're going to have to balance in this next master plan.
And that's the conversation around the diversity of ownership, and I think getting people together, because you have property owners and developers who are bent towards that, and other people in the community who are interested in the conversation, but it's, you know, if someone told me right now we could buy the apartment complex in a land bank, and the village could own it and just have it pay for itself until we could get a connecting piece on Southfield Road so you could go through and you have a big enough chunk to entice a developer, I'd be all for it, but I just don't know how to get there from here, because that's not what I do. So it's just, we need to put our arms around everybody in that area and figure out how to do that. And we learned, you know, we had someone who was looking at putting housing in there, and we were pushing against townhouses and towards a big multi-unit, and they said, you know, you learn how much parking costs per space. Parking is a limiting factor if you're trying to densify the parking, because, you know, the medical village is the least dense thing in the world. It's a bunch of ranch houses with massive parking, and it works for them, so they don't have a motivation to do anything. So that's the challenge. How do you compel that and get people to buy into the vision that they should tear up what they have and participate in something else? So
Sure.
Just going to comment on Rachel's point about the strip mall, right? And when I started on the planning commission, that was my biggest fear, is at that time, it was really kind of dilapidated. And it was before they repainted the roof. And I was worried that a 1960s strip mall was going to have vacancies. And what has happened differently, even though it's not a multi-story building, is that somebody's come in, purchased it, renovated it, improved it, upgraded it. So now I can see that lasting another 30 years or 40 years.
Right.
Whereas 20 years ago, I was worried about the downfall of that strip center and vacancies, and then what does that happen to our community?
Right.
So, you know, again, to Tracy's point, it's not the best, but it's got a good component that has, depending on the balance of tenants in there, it's an asset to our community. We're never going to recreate those other communities, but
Right.
we got to have something that's attractive to
Well,
the
and
community.
we do have a developer that in Beverly Hills right now that owns one of the buildings along that strip that has been actively looking at other properties to develop them into things. So we have somebody with money and capital that is looking to purchase and work with us. And so there is that opportunity in that individual, and, you know, hopefully, you know, I know they've looked at like 3 or 4 properties along that strip, and some, you know, they own one and some other ones haven't worked out. But I think that as things come available, they want to do more here, so.
And I think there's more people like that, and we just need to get them to know each other so
Yeah.
they can say, oh, you're interested, we should do something.
Sure.
Yeah.
And that kind of coordination is something that a DDA can help with. I know that
They're talking about like development.
that comment came up in here a couple times.
Generally, but specifically they're talking.
Anything that really stands out to anyone here that they want to bring up that we haven't already talked about?
Just briefly, potentially activating the religious uses that aren't being used anymore,
Yeah.
frankly. That's some of the available land that might be most readily available, actually.
So I think I actually put on there like rezoning those corner lots. You know, we have quite a few churches that are struggling, right? Like really struggling.
Or closed down.
Or closed down completely. And there are one. And, you know, like that one at the corner of 13 and Evergreen, I live right there. I've had so many people be like, how great would it be if we had a place that we could go to there?
So Joe, I would suggest like something like the redevelopment ready sort of like marketing for it, so we get people, so that they purchased that lot and initially wanted like gas station or a car wash, right? So, we want to work, we almost want to be able to market it with the church potentially to get the kind of developer we want versus the gas station.
Sure.
And the car wash that exists
Sort of
like all over the place, right?
An RFP process that the village is
We don't need another
kind
one of those.
of engaged in.
Yeah.
That's the sensitive, absolutely, we got to look for redevelopment, but it's the right redevelopment.
Right.
And we have to be strategic about that, because what drives that redevelopment is your return on investment. And then you think about, the neighborhood mom and pop grocery store, that's not going to really survive there. They struggle as it is in large communities. So you got to really think about who would come in and develop it that has a return on their investment. That's the biggest struggle and then what would fit in that area based on someone who wants to develop it.
Sure. Yeah, you have to think about the location, what's around it, who can get to it easily. Yeah, there's a lot of things that go into that. But I get exactly what you're all saying, though. I'm familiar with the corner, too, that we were just talking about. But, yeah, that's something that we can definitely look at as part of this process, like really thinking hard about what the strategy is there. Because I've seen communities do kind of an RFP process where they get together with the landowner and they're looking for something, and they kind of go out and say, give us your best idea, for this lot, and they kind of pick who's going to come in and develop the lot. So it's something that we might be able to build a model for here.
So one thing we haven't talked about, and there were a couple of comments, there's a comment about stormwater, there's a comment about energy, right? So we haven't talked about, making decisions today that will make this community more resilient 25 years from now, right? In a different energy future and a different climate future, right? And so what can we do for these properties that are being redeveloped to make sure they're built with certain energy efficiency standards and certain insulation standards and whatnot, so that people can afford to cool these homes 20 years from now, right? And so that, with an aging infrastructure, and the flooding issues we're already having, that we're planning for what that could look like under changing climate conditions, and what decisions can we be making with our land use that either furthers us or at least doesn't back us out.
Sure, yeah. And with things getting hotter, you have to think about how much you're covering with pavement and, what the heat island effects of your future development are.
I feel like Susie's got a bingo card over there, and she's checking off. She's like, okay, Tracy said stormwater. All right. Right. Tracy said, Jeff said multimodal, right?
Yeah, PAC to never have a data center nearby also, I jumped out at me because I do work for some rural townships, and, we're working on zoning regulations.
We're okay, guys.
To deal with it. That's one of the advantages of being in a fairly built-out area, is there's nowhere to put it.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. Send your prayers to Belleville, but I think we're okay.
All right, that was a really, really good one. So, some of these were probably already hinted at in the last set of answers, but what do we need to be wary of in the future? I really think we were just talking about one of the things we need to be wary about in the future in terms of sustainability and resiliency, but what else do we need to be thinking about? And obviously, if that's your top of mind, definitely put that in here. hear any more typing, but if you're finishing up a response, feel free to keep going.
Okay, this one you'll.
Oh, I got drones flying over my house all the time.
I know, should we have put car washes in there?
Yeah. Car washes and pot shops, right?
We have three.
Car washes and mattress shops. Seriously.
That's how they launder the money.
Mini storage.
Here's one for you, Susie.
It's all in the mattress.
Right.
Everyone thinks that every car wash now is a laundry at staff.
That's for you.
I've seen the show. I know what Walter White does.
Right.
Ozark.
No Dollar General.
See the one that's right on, across from the gas station on 14 that's going up? Is it Ian?
Yeah, okay.
I can't believe it. There's so many.
Definitely seeing some themes here.
The membership subscription thing kind of
Oh,
creeps me
yeah.
out.
That's,
Once every 4 months.
Are we mocking Jack's memberships down there? What's happening?
yeah, no, she,
I have a Jack's membership.
no, I was like, you get a membership, you wash it a lot.
I mean, I guess.
The does.
I mean, it rains.
I gotta wait.
Sometimes. Yeah.
All right, you're losing us.
I was,
Yeah, we're,
listen.
Bring it back in.
Sorry, we're devolving.
Let's bring it.
You're shaking
the
bait.
teacher is leading the, yeah, yeah.
All right.
Let's bring it back.
Susie got gavelled, let the record reflect
there-
Susie was
Scratch up
gavelled.
the paint.
Definitely some themes here. I mean, lot coverage, climate resiliency, impact of climate on forestation, flooding and other infrastructure costs, ecological diversity. There is clearly a theme of we're worried about green space, we're worried about where water goes when it falls out of the sky, we're worried about the infrastructure costs. These are all related to each other, of course. So that strikes me as something that we really need to be thinking hard about. Cost of living is another one, definitely. I think generational divide is in large part a cost of living divide and an accumulated wealth divide. It's a lot harder to accumulate wealth now than it ever has been, whether you have it to begin with or not. So, yeah, pricing out young families, becoming too old, I mean, those go hand in hand. So we've definitely got some major themes there.
You got it.
Spider.
And I think that maybe this becoming a less desirable place to live might kind of be sort of the aggregation of all the other themes that we're seeing here, you know, is if we can't get a handle on resiliency and we can't get a handle on cost, we ultimately might become a less desirable place to live. And that's kind of the risk of not thinking about these things in advance and getting ahead of them. There are some things that, you know, I mean, I don't know what we can do about these things, you know, as a municipality necessarily, you know, cybersecurity and drone delivery. These are difficult issues for a municipality to tackle unless the entire region is going to kind of be there with us. But I do think that these two here in the lower corner, the new trends, competing with larger communities, that is an element of being part of a large and fragmented metro area, is everybody's trying to pull something to them, right? Because everybody wants the tax dollars, everybody wants the thing that's going to draw residents to their community. So that is something that I think realistically you do have to think about, is, you know, ultimately where things go becomes a function of where they can afford to go and whether they think that they're going to get that return on investment that we were just talking about. So definitely worth thinking about. And then some of these things are very specific, but they all kind of speak to that same, sense of, we have a mix of businesses right now that, largely speaks to our population. What happens if that population changes, if the level of affordability changes, and then what happens if some of those businesses kind of change to a different stock of businesses.
Well, and I've seen it on a couple of these slides, there's a little bit of a conflict also, which is not, unexpected. I mean, we've got a group of people here, but, we're conscious of future costs, right, and pricing people out. But we have these infrastructure needs.
Exactly.
Right? So there's comments about water and sewer rates and thinking about, whether or not that'll price people out in the future. But then if we're not maintaining our infrastructure, we're not going to be a desire, right? If we're the community where everyone's basement backs up every time it rains, no one's going to want to move here. Right?
Sure.
So how do, navigating that piece, right, is, I don't know.
It's
There's
definitely a
magic answer.
balancing act, because there's a comment in here about maintaining home value. That's in tension with affordability, right? Because home values have skyrocketed, and they're way above where they've ever really been. So maintaining values where they are might lead to unaffordability. And having them come back down, that could have a really negative effect on people who bought during the peak of the market, right?
What do people say, though, when that house down the street goes up for sale and it's some crazy price? Well, that's good for me, eventually.
Yeah.
But, it's in,
Right.
to your point, Tracy, it's contrary to what we're seeing here about making it affordable for us. But
Right.
when you hear about that street and that house going up, and saying, well, good for them. I'll be happy that one day when I sell. But who we sell them to?
Right.
Yeah, I don't know if you're all familiar with McSweeney's. It's like a satirical magazine. And they had this headline not that long ago of like, I want housing to be affordable except when I sell mine for $1 million. And that's really kind of the central tension, right? Is that everybody wants that embodied value that they can get out of their house to be as high as possible. But if we don't have a certain level of affordability, then we run into problems, especially with, maintaining that ability to be a family-friendly community.
Well, and I think if we're all honest about it, right, I mean, we all enjoy the fact that it's an attractive, affluent community, right? But what we want is for there to be enough young families out there that can afford to live here, right? So that, right, because a huge part of what maintains the home values and the reputation of the community is the reputation of our public schools, right? And without those public schools being functioning, right, we lose a lot. But if, this is Ryan's point always on the demographics of the community, right? An aging community does not maintain that school district. And so, I think what we really want is a bunch of rich young families to move in, right? That's what we're kind of saying, right? Like, we need, but they don't exist, right?
Just real quick to Tracy's point,
Sure.
So every time that house sells for $1 million, just so you guys know how municipal financing works, that money does not come back to pay for the infrastructure when those taxes become uncapped. So no matter how much the house prices go up, it doesn't necessarily improve the infrastructure because we're not receiving that money unless it's a completely new build. So just so there's an understanding there that, yeah, so.
That's a good point, actually, yeah. But yeah, to what you were just saying too, we've seen communities kind of implode because their school systems.
Berkeley's a great example, right? They're on the comeback now.
Exactly.
They went through like probably the early 2000s, late 90s. They closed, 2 or 3 elementary schools? Mm-hmm. And so they collapsed. I mean, they went in on themselves, and now they're slowly getting back. Where the schools are starting to be at capacity, but we were in Berkeley previously, and we moved in, like 15 kids in a classroom.
Sure.
I mean, they were having a hard time of, do we let go of a teacher and throw 30 kids in a class, or do we keep these low counts? We love the low counts, but obviously it's not great for the school's financial viability because you're cost. But so it's just always a risk that I see is as you build new houses and replace little ones with bigger ones, you end up getting, smaller families. You're going to have like 3 or 4 kids in a house, it'll be 1 or 2. And then all of a sudden, do your schools start to struggle to maintain? Because we have quite a few elementary schools around here. And I think we're doing okay right now.
Right.
But I have looked at the statistics of our neighborhoods, and nobody in their 30s lives here. Like, we're picking up people in their 40s and late 30s, but their early 30s, late 20s, they can't afford it.
And a lot of the ones who can afford it can also afford private school.
I was just going to say.
Yeah, well, that's another thing.
That's another draw on the public schools.
This is just the demographics of our community based on census,
Yeah.
not where the kids are going to school. So it's just, you're right, though. I mean, if you get the young people in, they're going to private school. I mean, we got the biggest private school population right in our little area.
Yep.
So, I mean, it's a drain. So we're always, in my opinion, a little bit at risk.
Right.
If we lose one elementary school, you don't get them back. They don't like turn it into a commercial building and then say, oh, never mind, well.
Bring the kids back.
Because there's wasn't it an elementary school there at Evergreen?
Kroger?
13? Wasn't it, that used to be a school, right?
Where?
Just south of.
Oh, yeah.
13.
South of
It's a
14?
senior center.
Oh, Barnum.
Oh.
Yeah, that was an elementary school.
Yeah, that was an elementary school. So one time,
Next, what's next?
you already had
No,
one of the schools
Midvale.
kind of.
Midvale, but there was Barnum
Oh, I thought
too.
it was talking about
Barnum
13
is,
and Evergreen.
Barnum
Yeah,
is
13 Evergreen.
the other side.
thought you were
Just
talking about the one.
kitty corner from Groves.
Barnum
I thought
got
that
torn down.
building there, somebody told me was a while back, school.
No one's driven by the one
Barnum got torn
on
down.
Losser north of 15 Mile behind the Kroger that someone bought and turned into a single-family home. That's worth driving by.
Oh, I did see that. I have seen that,
Just turned an entire elementary school into a house.
I mean, that comment actually hit on something that everybody's struggling with now, which is the shrinking family size too. So you can have the exact same physical makeup of a community and it's going to have fewer people in it. I think Berkeley at its peak in the 70s had like 18,000 people in it. And even after its resurgence, it's still got way less than that now because there's not 8 kids in every house, It was a very different, family forming environment, when these communities were built. So we all kind of naturally just have less population now than we once did because there's just not as many people in each household.
Yeah.
We also, if you have a higher elderly population that doesn't move out because you have, like, we have a lot of ranches.
Sure.
We have a very decent tax base compared to Birmingham Roanoke. So you look at that too, and I've seen people retire into Beverly Hills.
Sure.
I think that can be a risk as well, is if you're replacing these smaller homes that are 1,200 square feet instead of 30-somethings moving in, you have 60-somethings moving in. That also displaces the opportunity for somebody to go to school, raise their kids here, the community to bloom and grow. So I'm not saying it's happening, but it's just from a threat perspective, if we don't have the right amenities, we don't have the right house sizes, affordability, then you do limit to seniors retiring from Birmingham into Beverly Hills for taxes and single-floor household.
Sure.
There's a bit of a risk there.
Okay. Any other thoughts on this one before we go to there's 2 more, so move on to the next one here. So this is kind of trying to gather everything we've just been talking about into a couple of points, basically, that helps us to, create that next version of the vision statement. I see one I really like and want to talk about. We either said it best.
Oh, jeez. Let's see.
One of their biggest hits is Beverly.
These are That's almost like.
I don't know which one of you did that. Who couldn't resist?
Talk about this one.
Probably.
If anybody's finishing up any responses, that's fine. One that popped up early that I actually want to talk about, community that values coming together. I really like this one. This, because I've been reading a lot lately about, why are birth rates falling so low? Why do we all kind of have this sense of like anomie and loneliness and disconnection? And we live in this electronic world, right, where we all have these in our hands all the time, and we can shop from home, and we can talk to each other from home, and we're getting a lot less in-person FaceTime with each other. And I think that there's a lot of research coming out now that really shows that that's a big part of why we don't feel as connected to each other anymore, because we're literally not with each other in person as much as we once were. And that could be for anything from going on a date to literally just making eye contact with someone at a cash register. We just aren't as connected physically to people as we once were. So this community that values coming together really kind of jumped out at me amongst all these responses, which of course really reflect kind of what we were talking about with the strengths up front, but also some of the other things that we've talked about in the meantime, particularly in the opportunities discussion. But this one really kind of just sort of speaks to a lot of the things that I've been thinking a lot about, in my planning work recently, is how do we remain a community that comes together when we have so many forces kind of pushing us apart, if you will. And that can go into some of the things that we saw coming up in some of the other responses, things like, the programming that we have through Parks and Recreation, the kinds of programming that you could potentially have through a DDA. Creating shops to draw residents of the village actually speaks directly to this, because you have a little bookshop or something, that's a place people can go to see each other, to be around each other. You don't even have to talk to each other necessarily. But if you have people with kind of common interests and you can go to the same place as them, that gives you a sense of connection to the place where you live. And I think, everything's moved to streaming and Kindles and things, and there are some advantages to that, but, as a teenager, I hung out in record stores, and that's how I met people, And, it's harder for people to do that now. So
You went to the Berkeley School.
it's really,
Records.
Well, so this is a really good point, because I think a lot about, when I think about our community and development, I'm usually looking at it through like an adult lens, right? So like to your earlier point, like I work from home now, right? I didn't used to work from home, right? I used to go to the office every day and had this really vibrant office life and community. And so we talk a lot about like, what are we missing by not having that? Well, but what I'm gaining is that I go out for a walk at lunch, right? And we have sidewalks and I see my neighbors, and I mean, I work from home, I look out the window all day long, there are people walking all day long, right? And sometimes I'm like, am I the only one working, right? But no, like, so many more people are working from home. You go up to, we do have nice little shops. You go up to Premier on your lunch hour, you run into people, right? There's people getting there with their dog and whatever. But it's the other demographic though, like what are our young people doing, right? Like we've got the park, right? Like people that are playing baseball and are going to the playground. There's stuff for little kids. There's BHAC, right? But like this middle zone is tough, right? I mean, I think we're, I'm really grateful as a parent. Like downtown Birmingham is a great asset to us. Sure. Right? I mean, my kids can ride their bikes to a movie theater in a Coney Island and walk around downtown. And so we've got that. But there is kind of a gap, right, for,
And if I may speak to that as well, sorry to interrupt.
No, please.
I'm in that young 30s category, unmarried, no kids, but I do feel that social media is very prevalent today. And I think what you said about events and community spaces really hits on a lot of different comments that people have said here tonight. But I do feel a bit that there's a gap in the programming because there's things geared towards much older folks. Like I went to the coffee and jazz event and that seemed like very, very old demographics. And then there's book events and like things for people with sports. But like I don't typically feel like when I read the Beverly Hills flyer that there's an event that really jumps out to me as like, oh, I'm going to see other people my age there. Or if I have gone and like experienced some of the events, they're just all over the place. So I would like to see some more programming or just spaces. And I know we said we're not trying to be Birmingham, but one thing I do like about Birmingham is that when I go out there, I do expect to see people my age. And I'm just going to casually bump into people and it's like a place they hang out. So if we could bring that element of wanting to hang out and having spaces like that, I think that would kind of fill, at least for me, the gap. We're not maybe being so like luxury or bougie in Birmingham status, but that same type of feel where we still have connection here.
And just to, Tracy made a good point about looking at things through an adult lens, and I look at it through a 12 and 9-year-old lens all the time, because that's the focal point. If I come home from work, what are my kids gonna do? What are we gonna do? What are we gonna do on the screen? So, but the flip side of that is though, this particular community, and I've put up there multiple times about connectivity. We live in a space and place where we have multiple jurisdictions that offer a variety of things that are close by. And I don't think we should overlook that fact because maybe the community isn't ripe for large development or infrastructure changes to that extent, but certainly the connectivity with other communities is very valuable. And we bought in Beverly, I've literally lived up Evergreen. We started in Southfield, we went to Lathrop, and then we came to Beverly Hills. So for me, I stayed in the area because of the connectivity with the communities, the locale, the ability to go to Troy and Slick City, but then we can go to Books A Million and grab a book. So I don't think we should overlook the value of being in a jurisdiction that is surrounded by multiple jurisdictions as well. And Southfield connects all of that, and partnering or somehow finding a way to connect with other communities, I think is gravely important when you're in a smaller community. And that way you don't have to feel like you have to overdevelop your community. You can find partnerships somewhere, so.
Good point. Library and the senior center.
Right. Yeah, right. Something else.
Yeah, we don't have a library, right? We go either way.
Yeah.
Yeah, either way.
Go Birmingham or South.
But again, we need more, the pool for kids. What is my 9-year-old gonna do? So.
And I think there's an opportunity with the DDA to encourage some of that, just to like create opportunities where we're trying to bring people out for events at each of the places. And, Paddle and Park could have a thing. The Bev could have a thing. You can do, we can do things in the pavilion that are trying to draw people out because there's people sitting there that are lonely and there are people that would talk to them. They just need to be in the same spot at the same time. So once you get the power alley behind the place. I know, so.
We need a bowling alley.
Bolero right down the road.
Part of that's
And a
too
roller
is just
rink.
younger people don't know how to talk anymore either. Everyone's staring at their phones because I go to the Royal Oak Run Club every Monday and there's people who are like desperately searching for connection and they just stand there and they'll make a really weird comment. You don't know how to incorporate them into the conversation.
Now, again, but that's partially, I bought shoes at Hanson's. That's partially just runners who are like solitary creatures. And,
Yeah. Like someone will come up and be like, you're really sweaty. I'm like, thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah, I did just run.
Like that's a compliment.
Yeah.
Seriously?
Yeah. Maybe we need like a how to talk event. Toastmasters, adults.
Socialization 101.
Yeah.
Start with hello.
Hello, you're really sweaty.
Big problem that spans way more than what we can do here.
Yeah, I don't know if it's in the master plan.
Yeah. It's like Toastmasters, though, I think, for kids and adults.
You know, we have some really good recreational, kind of, right, between Paddle and Par now, BHC, BHAC, the parks, right? So, I mean, we have,
2 golf courses.
yeah, you know, and more than a lot of communities have, right? But like, you know, those are really great assets for us, right? And I so prefer that to another, you know, Kroger or something, right? And so it's, you know, when we think about like that space at 13 and Evergreen, you know, what are the other things we can do that, you know, bring the community together, right? And, you know, churches do that, but we have a lot of them.
I think John's point about Paddle and Park, because they had that, didn't they have that cover band in there a little while ago?
Yeah, they're doing it big events, yeah.
If we could publish stuff like that better.
But no, it's to your point.
That's the DDA.
I heard about it after the fact.
Yeah, I remember that.
But I mean, they've got ping pong tables, they have just seating space. They could host a coffee hour where people come and
Yeah, don't they have a dance liquor license too, right? It's a dance liquor license.
Oh, yeah, they're
on band
fabulous.
nights, it's funny in there. It really is.
They have trivia night.
Advertise and stuff.
But to your point, working together with other businesses.
Oh, yeah.
So that, you know, well, it used to be the Growler, the Misher,
The Bev.
the Bev, I'm sorry, the Bev. And, you know, just when our new pizza restaurant opens up, so it's the same idea of enhancing, then making a connectivity for different generations, different nights, to bump into each other. And as you're talking about the bookstore, I was thinking about Books A Million, just putting some tables outside. You know, restaurants put the tables outside all the time, but why couldn't you be sitting outside and along the side?
I personally have 4 different friend groups who are all really into dancing lately, and there is a lot of different venues, like Blind Owl does line dancing, there's Coyote Joe's that also does line dancing, Syndicate does salsa, and then there's a place in New Center that does like West Coast Swing, which I never learned about before, but they bring in a teacher and everybody gets to connect, and it's actually really, it's so fun.
Oh, this is gonna
Well, I think it's great that people like in my group are getting out and doing those things, and there are people I would never have guessed that like dancing.
We need to figure it out. That's where Susie and the connectivity of the DDA.
Yeah.
Because like, if Paddle and Par is doing things,
Like
and
that.
we need to be able to publish that to the community, there's an opportunity for
Just
that.
something.
How that goes in the master plan, I don't know, but.
Yeah.
We have that development agreement.
We'll connect later, Susie.
Yeah.
I have a lot of different groups that I know about who all the stuff go dancing. I've learned about this very recently. It's a growing trend.
So, let's, you know, I just want to make, you know, write this down because
Mark 'em all in that
Robin made a good point, you know, a community events page on our website.
Yeah.
And it made me think about, I do some work in some other communities, and they put on their front of their webpage is their opportunity for development. And it's a large development that has occupancy. So they're broadcasting, they have occupancy in a commercial building and looking to attract businesses as their front page of their website. If we can link some of our community events that occur in some of our businesses and promote them.
Yeah.
It's a free promotion, right? And that people are going to it, it does bring awareness then. And that's a simple thing, and that shows us as a community, as community leaders and municipality, that we're on the forefront to making sure we want our community to be viable.
Sure.
The other part of that, Penn, is, you know, I mean, the website brings a certain amount of traffic, but we also have to go where people are, right? Like, and people are on Instagram, and people are on, right, different, right? So, I mean, like, we have to make sure that we are keeping up with that, right? Because, I mean, the way people use the internet is also demographically divided.
Yes.
Right? And
sure.
Yeah, Beverly Hills has an Instagram page, and they posted that stuff. I would for sure be following it and sharing it with my friends.
Right.
I want to see you guys on TikTok tomorrow making your first TikTok.
There's your dancing, Susie. Get on the
Get your Kool-Aid and your skateboard and
Any talk?
Let's do salsa in the park.
yeah, so very good stuff here. We got one last question here. what can we measure to understand our progress as a village? So, end of the master plan, we're going to have some benchmarks in there. How do we know that we're making progress on some of these things? Some things will be obvious, but other things, how do we know that we're being successful with our vision for our community?
Yeah, I want to say, home sales, but then.
I was just typing that.
But as I'm typing that, I'm thinking, but if people are staying, isn't there some sense of
Right.
they
It is.
enjoy
Like,
it?
I
So
was-
you're not going
yeah.
to sell a house very often,
Yeah.
You like the community, so you don't want to see high turnover. So you want to see turnover, but not high turnover. So I couldn't figure out how to say that.
I was going to say,
Mama
like
bear
lack of
turnovers?
housing, but it's also a good thing, 'cause when the house goes up for sale, it's immediately bought, so you don't, it's kind of like.
Lack of vacancy is what you
Lack
want.
of vacancies, yeah.
Yeah, so what is that, like days on the market?
Yeah, like days on the
Right,
market,
yeah.
so, very short.
That's a good example.
Availability of
it.
too. We had
Great
some
minds
times
think
where there were 7 houses for sale in the entire.
The dancing, who said that? Actually, wasn't me.
Is it Susie?
No, I actually haven't counted this one yet.
Sure.
I think we should do salsa in the park, though, I really do. That's like a really easy low lift.
So did you list Vincente's
Downtown back.
as a dance
Love
place?
it. It's so fun.
Cuisine, Cuban cuisine.
It's the
I love it.
steakhouse that does it, the steakhouse in,
Yeah.
Clausen.
yeah, Boston Steakhouse, yeah.
Mark James Band? I mean,
I don't know who does the dance songs,
you know,
but.
it's Mark James Band, yeah. That place is Clausen? Yeah, that place.
Nice steak.
All right, looks like we got a lot of ideas in here. Obviously, if you're still typing, keep typing. Go ahead and put them in there. More small businesses just popped up, so that's actually one potential way to kind of gauge how your commercial market is doing and whether you're adding any new spaces, is if you're getting more of those kind of locally developed businesses. Days on the market, I am assuming probably speaks more toward housing than commercial as a comment, but it could kind of really be either one. How long does it take to refill that commercial space when the business goes out? And then obviously, how long does it take to sell a home? That speaks to the demand for living here. Lack of vacancy. I think lack of vacancy in housing and also lack of vacancy in your commercial spaces would be another thing to look at. Tracking demographics. There's definitely several comments in here that speak to tracking demographics. So rather than just, updating it every 10 years or whatever, really keeping tabs on it. Fewer catastrophes. That might really kind of speak to like how are we doing with stormwater and things. We had 50 businesses or 50 basements flood in 2 events last year, and this year we've got it down to a lot less than that, even though we had the same number of severe events. Maybe that could be interpreted as progress or something along those lines. Crime rate. So a lot of this stuff is measurable. Survey, just ask people. That's always a valid method of reaching out, and you could have maybe even just this year, we're going to ask a couple questions about this in January and a couple questions about this in August, and next year we'll ask about, topic C in January. It doesn't have to be a 30-question survey every time. It could be something real short and to the point. As long as you're doing it, kind of along the way. Is our population basically steady? Being a built-out community, we're probably not going to add a lot of population, but are we kind of keeping where we are? And then within that, what is the demographic balance? how many people were in the line dance.
That wasn't me.
Two is a line dance.
Thou doth protest too much.
Yeah, home maintenance, so that could possibly be tracked by, I mean, maybe you've even got some code enforcement metrics that you could track to, if you're not issuing very many citations, that means people were maintaining the property well.
Take some work.
And then fiscal health, obviously, you have to keep tabs on that as a village. There was a comment earlier about capital improvement planning, which I'm a big supporter of. So that could be one way to support that fiscal health and, tracking. You can kind of put a dashboard together that tracks that. And neighbors like each other, reduced resident complaints. I think these,
I would like a survey, please.
Neighbors like each other is a funny way to put it, but, it actually kind of does matter, because that speaks to that connection that we were talking about earlier. Yeah, I think a lot of these are things that we can work into, the final chapter of that comprehensive plan to give ourselves some benchmarks by which we can, measure how we're doing on the goals that we set for ourselves. Because if you're not, revisiting your goals, then they're just goals. They're just kind of on paper. You have to really be visiting them over and over again and seeing how you're doing. One thing I always recommend to communities, and I actually have a community, Clawson in fact, where we put it in their planning commission bylaws that every January they have to review the goals of their master plan.
Love it.
And that's something that I've been recommending in communities now is let's do that, annual review so that we're not losing sight of the goals that we set for ourselves.
We're gonna kind of do that.
I know. We do a good job.
But write it down so everybody else has to do it too.
One comment about master plan is, I'd like it to be realistic.
Sure.
Yeah.
I think our current master plan is aspirational. Like we want an entire district downtown kind of area, which means we're gonna buy up all that land, or we're gonna work with a bunch of developers to tear it all down and rebuild it. I don't think that's realistic. I think we're kind of stuck with what we have to some degree. So I'd like something that we can manage. I mean, I don't have a problem with having an aspiration in there, but I think there should be,
In the meantime,
what are we doing to get to that aspiration if we want it?
Sure.
When I read it for the very first time, I kind of put it down because I was like, this is silly. Talk about benches, which was realistic, but when it came to a area that's a district that's going to be shopping and all this, that's it just isn't, we don't have a white space to build that out on. I'd love it if the trees weren't falling on houses and just broke down all those commercial buildings instead, and then we could be forced to rebuild all that, but, because we have those, 3 or 4 row buildings right there, they're just kind of brick monstrosities in a sense,
Where are you talking about?
along Southfield.
The one that was racquetball courts.
Yeah, you've just got a few buildings there, around
he's
the top
talking
of
about
that.
Peter's place.
Oh, okay.
Anyway, it feels like it's not structured to be, and then you have,
cool inside.
the apartments behind that, and I've seen visions of what everybody wants it to be, but it's to me, it's money to spend, and the requirements to do that aren't realistic, so.
Sure. So the aspiration is still important, but the increments that would move you toward the aspiration
Yeah, you have to have
is
a plan.
as important.
Master plan that leads to a goal, so I don't mind if it's a goal, but the fact that it kind of is more or less a plan is kind of.
It's a vision, it's not a plan.
Yeah.
And so that's the challenge.
It's like a moonshot, which they're great, but they shouldn't be what you're doing today or tomorrow.
Sure.
Guiding light.
Okay. Yeah, that's a good point. Any other final thoughts here?
I think cohesion is important. I think Pat brought it up earlier. I think our community needs some form for that community feel, for people to want to get together. I think you do need a cohesion of sorts, and that's from the buildings to the landscape to, and I don't mean everything is cut and paste and looks the same, but I think we do need some form of, like, we really have, in my opinion, like 3 or 4 communities within Beverly Hills. You have what I would call the east side, you've got those large 1-acre properties out on the west side, you've got a couple neighborhoods like the Robin Hood area and Huntley that are kind of like neighborhoods, and you have places where I live and Rachel lives, which is a little bit more open, like West Beverly, where it's a little bit more fluid. You're not quite a neighborhood, but so I think Westwood's one of those neighborhood areas too. So I just think we're kind of like that, but I think as a community, I'd love to see more cohesion. Someplace like people come to the park regularly for events, and we do movies and things like that, but I don't know that we have the population. You look at Berkeley, they have the art fair, right? That is like, city shuts down and everybody comes in, and that's what everybody does for the weekend. Sure. So I'm not saying do that, but I'm just saying we don't have the same level of kind of cohesion.
Yes. How do you help communities memorialize big ideas? But so when I say memorialize, we memorialize the downtown vision. We don't have a plan.
Sure.
How do we get from idea to plan? Because do you have the master plan pulled up?
I don't have it pulled up, but I got it if you need it.
Map of the community. We acquired a piece of parkland that is southwest of Groves. So it's on 13 Mile on the south side of the road.
Okay.
West of Groves, on the river.
Sure.
You follow the river up, you run into Douglas Evans Nature Preserve on the river. You keep following it up, you run into Hidden Rivers, or Riverside Park, then Hidden Rivers. So all of our parks, or 4 of the parks anyhow, are along the river. There was a conversation about how do we build a walkway along them. You think about Birmingham, you can walk from Salvatore Scalapini's back through the woods and wind up all the way down through there.
Sure.
I assume in my head that happens when property changes hands and you get the right of way, and it's going to take 2 generations, but you don't get there unless you have a plan. And I don't know how to get there from here. So that's the kind of thing I'd love to figure out how to do, so we can have a North Star and a plan for how we do that.
Sure.
When we talk about things like bike paths, we're paving roads and we're not putting bike paths in because we don't have another bike path, but it's building the bike path that causes it to be connected to a later one.
Sure.
Talk about sidewalks. We've given people, a variance to skip building the sidewalk, and at the same time not had the attorneys have them sign off on the trade-off for that being when we need to build a sidewalk, you have to let us build it. And then we wind up paying those people right-of-way access to build a sidewalk that they should have had to pay for. So, we need to be smarter about some of this, and I'm trying to figure out how to build that into the DNA or the
Sure.
plans or whatever.
Yeah.
That's the kind of thing that I'd like to figure out how to build in here.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Just better guide rails so that when we're all gone, people, whenever we give someone a variance, they need to sign off so that we have access to build what we gave them forgiveness for not doing. When a property changes hands with river access, we need to build in the right-of-way access so we can put a walking path through there.
Sure.
And I don't know how to build that into the community.
I like to think of it as, let's say, driving to Cincinnati. We know that we're going to get to our friend's house in Cincinnati, and here's the address. But to do that, we have to turn right on Southfield Road. We have to take 39 to, and through Allen Park, and then we have to get on 75 South. So there's like a set of steps that gets us there. And if you don't do all the steps, you don't get there.
Right.
So when you write an implementation plan, which is like the key part of any comprehensive plan, right, is this implementation chapter that comes at the end. And it's a grid, and it has who's responsible for doing this in the first place. It has where might we get funding to do this. It has this is something we can do in the next 5 years, and it has something this is a much more long-term thing that we need to think about. And then the next time you update your master plan, you can look at that and say, all right, well, these were done, we'll get them out of there, but we'll carry these forward because they were in the more long-term vision. So that goal does kind of have that North Star effect, your final destination, if you will. And nothing's ever final in development, of course, but you kind of know where you want to go. But getting there is going to require a lot of steps in between. And a good implementation plan walks you through those steps in between. It's not just saying, here's where we want to be in 20 years, we'll figure it out. These are the concrete, discrete steps that we have to take now. What do we need to change in the zoning ordinance? Where might we find funding to actually build something? That kind of thing all needs to be in that implementation chapter.
And that's what I think we haven't, we as a community could have been better about, and that's what I'm trying to think about constantly so that when we're gone, there's just better guidance on that. Because,
sure.
You know, some of this is, this is a transient group, and muscle memory doesn't exist in transient groups unless you build a guide system.
Exactly.
So, and the guide system's as good as anyone who uses it, but hopefully someone picks it up and they actually think about that kind of thing. But I'd like to leave as many breadcrumbs as possible. So
yeah,
that I'd like to think about that while we're doing it.
Around, I would say, 14 years ago on the planning commission, and I know the master plan has to be renewed every 5 years. And then you said something about we were like 10 years behind since we did the last one.
It's been about 10 years since you did the last one. I think I would have reviewed it at the 5-year mark, but yeah.
So I know someone mentioned that the master plan, is not, I thought it was a well document that we could follow as a roadmap, and a lot of things went into it, and there was a lot of thought given to that, and it took months and months of preparation to give us a starting point. So then we did this thing called the Village Center Plan. We did an overlay district plan. And then we kind of, dabbled with a development, right? And then we had stipulations on that development. You can put your big building here and then a small building here. Made some concessions and allowances to allow parking and allow spacing, between the mixed use, where it blends well with the residential community that surrounds it and commercial community that's around it. So recently, we didn't do some things right, apparently, because there was an issue, for me it was an issue, there was an issue regarding this development, and then, and the consensus was, well, we're going to learn from that, and that's absolutely what we have to do. So what did we do there, and why did we make, the developer go through hoops and have different multi-uses to get, the main business in the back, and then elevate it at 3 stories and then have a 45-degree behind it because there's another open 2.5 acres of land. So there's a development agreement. Again, learning from all of that, I think, is important. Now you have to take that overlay district. Now you have to take that, the village center, overlay district itself, and make sure that that's implemented in your plan so you know that the next developer doesn't have to go through the same things.
Rock, I look at it as building the baseball field, but then you need to tell people it's there and get them to come play. And so that the plan that we did, that's the vision of what we want. But this is like, how do you get the people in a room to say, how do we work together to get it? And so I think the documents that's there, it's a good vision for what we want, but now it's like, are you waiting for people to come to you, or are you being proactive about going out?
Well, I think Jeff Campbell mentioned where you have to advertise it. You have to be able to make it easier. You have to make it development ready, and we're part of the Oakland County Development Ready. So we're there, right? And we have the infrastructure, and, for lack, our roads are crumbling. Of course they're gonna. I mean, it's natural that, 13 Mile gets milled and does twice and the road's closed. Now we have to keep going. By the time you finish Lasser, you're back to Greenfield Road, right? I mean, and we're only 4.3 square miles, right? So you have to remember that as well. So.
Sure. Any other final thoughts?
One other weird comment I have is that I'm noticing that there's a disconnect between like how information gets disseminated and how we receive information too. I mean, sometimes the line is a little bit blurry, like as a council member, as, working on the planning commission, how I receive information, a lot of it's my own thoughts. So sometimes other people coming to us or even knowing how to get that information across, or even like sharing what it is that we do here and how to share those thoughts in areas that we could develop. It's almost like we need to go out and get homework and like take pictures of areas where we think there could be a potential community space or something we could develop. So just thinking forward on how we share that information and how we get in touch with some of those younger groups that we also mentioned the need to and want to connect with. That's all.
I love it, and if you have answers, I'm all ears, because like the communication issues in this community, in every community, it's a cottage industry, it's a cottage industry because it's a continual problem. You got to be intentional about it, but the clearest example I have is one time the calendar's printed, it says the trash is going to be picked up this day, but that's a holiday. And so we communicated with every channel we had, like multiple times. Email, website, Facebook page, the villager, everything, and still people are calling. No one picked up my trash. So there's just, I remember the number of people that called. So it's a continual problem. We're all ears. We're trying to get better at figuring out how to communicate and what ways there are, and Susie will do it all.
We're gonna give Susie a megaphone and a golf cart, and she can just go around.
Rock gets the golf cart or the gator.
All right. Well, thank you, everybody, for your input tonight and being here. I really appreciate everyone who normally wouldn't have been here tonight coming out and spending the evening. I think this gives Eric and I a lot to think about and a lot of guidance for kind of things to keep in mind, and a pretty good basis for updating that vision statement. So again, really appreciate y'all being here and giving us your thoughts.
Joe, when will we see you next, or what's our next step?
So the things that we're working on right now is we have conducted a review of the previous master plan. So we've got some kind of exercises that are built around that. And then we are also working on the audit of the zoning ordinance, which is the first step in that process. So
Which is mandated, right? The audit?
It's part of the scope of this project, yeah. So the Planning Commission will see us no later than September. It might be August.
Okay, cool.
That's soon.
Any other comments for Joe or questions for Joe? Appreciate it. Thank you, Joe. Really appreciate it.
Thank you all.
Yep.
Like clapping's appropriate.
Yeah, I feel like clapping is appropriate. It's very
It was very thorough today, yeah. This feels right.
Okay, moving on to finish up our agenda. We've got public comments. Anybody from the public? Seeing none, we'll move right along. Liaison comments. Brian, you want to make any liaison comments?
Great meeting.
Staff
Did you
comments?
get that all written down?
Then we'll go to commissioner comments. Lou, welcome. You get the first chance at any commissioner comments at your first meeting.
Thank you. I appreciate the opportunity. In my earlier life, was the general counsel for Wayne State University, and learned at that point that new board members do their best work when they keep their mouth shut.
Very good thought.
I don't make that as a promise going forward. But I appreciate this. This is a thoughtful and insightful group, and I appreciate the opportunity to listen to it, and I look forward to taking part.
Thank you. Elizabeth?
No further comments. I think you've heard a lot of my thoughts tonight.
Jeff?
Just welcome, Lou.
Robin?
Welcome, Lou, and you're joining the band of lawyers over here. So
Yeah.
I feel like the planning commission is turning into a bunch
A
of
lot of lawyers.
at this point.
I did have a question. Are there does the university, I'm sorry, does the village have counsel?
Yes.
Outside
And are they,
Retention,
do we retain an outside firm, or do we actually have?
yes, the first one, outside firm.
Rosati, Carol Rosati's friend.
Okay.
We just made a change recently after
30.
48 years. My age, she was higher than, but a year or month and year I was
Some
born.
things I was wondering about is how actively do we use them? And I don't have an opinion about that because I don't know the answer to the first question. And part of that, I guess, is because that's what I did for a living for a ridiculously long time.
Yeah. They're available.
They're available.
4 attorneys in a row right here.
Yeah, no doubt.
Yeah.
That popped up to my mind is, they're obvious eminent.
You said what, Brian? Oh, 5 attorneys, yeah.
Or wish to do eminent domain.
I was just saying we're in a row.
Oh, yeah,
So what
Jared
happens with the
six.
poor architect?
Jared, Jared's alone.
You're about to get lawyered.
Actually, we have 6, Jared too.
Jared.
Jared.
So, welcome, Lou, but I did have one comment, and this goes back to my years in the village. So when I first moved in, I was part of a community engagement of understanding did a SWOT analysis. So I wonder if we have that report somewhere. It was back in 2002 or 3 when Brian Murphy was our village manager. And I was a part of there was a large number of people involved in it. It had to be 25, 30 people. And I was on a part of the subcommittee that went out and talked to businesses. It was some sort of, and we did a survey to all the residents, but it was back in, Brian Murphy, I looked it up, he was a village manager from 2001 to 2004. But when I saw the SWOT analysis, no, it was through the village. This was, Brian Murphy was this was his vision, to have an understanding of the community. So there's got to be a report somewhere from that time frame. And I just thought, looking at this process we did tonight, that it'd be interesting to look back and what came out of that conversation.
I would brave the vote.
There was also one done in
Tie a rope to it.
2012 to 14 at the January planning session, like the council planning session when Mercer was president.
Okay.
So,
This was a big one, because.
yeah, no, this was Saturday. People with,
Pardon me?
Was that pre-internet? Was before the internet?
Yeah, because I had to make phone calls to go to
You
businesses.
guys were like,
they were on AOL.
That's when internet came on a CD in the mail.
Yes, it was knocking on
There's
doors.
a disc in there.
Might be floppy.
So,
Yep.
Susie, any correspondence?
No.
Max.
And then I am looking for a motion to adjourn.
I move to adjourn?
Second? All in favor?
Aye.
Meeting adjourned.
No, it was Elizabeth.
I keep hitting my legs all night.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank you. Hey, I noticed there's no.
That was a very insightful conversation.
That's by design.
That actually was really fun.